I never thought the quiet, peaceful life I dreamed of would be interrupted by something as absurd as a toy handcuff. But that's exactly how it all started. It was a Sunday morning, the sun was barely up, and I was in my garden harvesting cucumbers. Life felt simple. I felt simple. Until she showed up. Karen, yeah, that was her name, wasn't just some neighbor minding her own business. No, Karen was the self-appointed enforcer of the neighborhood, and not in a good way. She was decked out in a neon yellow vest that screamed, "Neighborhood Watch." Even though let's be real, no such group actually existed in our community. She didn't have a badge. She didn't have any real authority. But she sure acted like she did. I still remember the first time I saw her. I had just moved into this small piece of land called Willow Creek Ranch, just on the outskirts of a little suburban town in Colorado. I was 29, fresh off years of city life, ready to live my dream, peaceful, quiet, no one telling me what color my mailbox had to be or what I could and couldn't grow. Just me, my animals, and my garden. My ranch was small, only 5 acres, but it felt like heaven. I had a few goats, some chickens, and a couple of fruit trees. No huge cattle, no farm machinery, just the basics. And honestly, that was enough for me. I wanted to live simple, to show the world that you didn't need all the glitz and glamour to be happy. But, as you might have guessed, it wasn't long before my peaceful dream collided with Karen's idea of what the neighborhood should look like. You see, Karen lived a couple of streets over, behind pristine white picket fences, where every house looked like it came straight out of a catalog. The lawns were trimmed to perfection, and the dogs were walked at exactly the same time every day. A neighborhood so perfect it almost looked staged. It was run by a ridiculously strict HOA, and Karen? She was the unofficial sheriff of the whole thing. The first time I met her, she came storming up to my fence, clipboard in hand, wearing a look on her face like she was about to expose a criminal. She gave me the once-over, like I was doing something wrong just by existing. "You know you're not allowed to have roosters, right?" she asked, not even bothering to introduce herself. "I don't have any roosters," I said. "Just hens." She frowned, then shot back. "Well, they poop, and that attracts flies." I shrugged. "So do dogs. You've got 3. She didn't like that response. Her eyes narrowed. "I'm just saying, you're violating neighborhood rules." Here's the kicker. I wasn't part of her HOA. I had deliberately bought my land outside the HOA's jurisdiction. I had checked. I had the paperwork. But Karen didn't care about that. She had decided that my property was fair game. And from that moment on, she started trying to enforce all sorts of ridiculous rules on me. Calls to animal control, complaints about my mailbox, which, by the way, was perfectly fine, anything to make my life difficult. She even called the post office once and tried to have my mail stopped because my mailbox didn't match the approved ones. But things didn't really get bad until one fateful morning. I was out in the garden, just enjoying the peace, when I heard a loud clang. I looked up and saw Karen halfway over my locked gate. She was dressed like she was on some kind of secret mission, hoodie, cargo pants, sneakers, climbing a locked fence like it was no big deal. Boomer, my dog, was barking up a storm from the porch, but Karen didn't stop. She stormed through my fields, yelling something about illegal farming. I blinked, thinking maybe I had misheard. But no, she was serious. She marched right up to my tomato plants, holding one up like it was evidence in a criminal case. "These are not allowed," she said, like I was some kind of criminal mastermind. I just stared at her. "Not allowed by who?" I asked. "There's no HOA rule about this. This is my land." But Karen wasn't listening. "You're growing food outside the approved boundaries," she snapped. "That's illegal farming." Illegal farming. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't farming on a huge scale. I wasn't making a profit off my tomatoes. I wasn't even growing anything that could be considered a commercial crop. But Karen? She had decided I was a threat to the entire neighborhood. It was then that I realized she wasn't just some annoying neighbor. She was determined to control me, my land, my life. So, I calmly told her to leave. But Karen, in all her glory, whipped out a pair of pink plastic toy handcuffs, I kid you not, and declared, "You're under arrest." I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. "Ma'am," I said as calmly as I could, "you're trespassing. You need to leave." But Karen wasn't done. She lunged at me. The whole world seemed to slow down in that moment. Boomer barking, Karen's toy handcuffs dangling in the air, my heart pounding as I tried to make sense of this madness. Was this really happening? And that's when everything changed. A deep, authoritative voice shouted from the tree line. Karen, what the heck are you doing? We both turned. A man, tall and red-faced, was standing there with a clipboard and a badge. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or confused. Was he with the HOA? Or was this something bigger? The man stormed toward us, and Karen froze. You need to step away from him, he said firmly. Now, that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about tomatoes or property lines. Karen had gone rogue, and the man standing in front of us was the one who was going to end it. Turns out, this guy was from the county. Officer Dan, he called himself. He explained that Karen didn't have the authority to trespass on my land. He even told her to go home, that her whole neighborhood watch gig was over. Karen looked stunned, and for a second, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. But it didn't end there. Not even close. In the days that followed, Karen went underground. She started sending fake reports, making up accusations about contamination and illegal farming. And then came the red flags. You see, Karen wasn't done. She had marked my property with tiny red flags, claiming it was a disputed area. She even convinced the county to send out environmental enforcement agents, who showed up with drones, soil testers, and all sorts of fancy equipment. They trampled through my fields like it was some kind of crime scene. And you know what? The most infuriating part wasn't the trespassing. It wasn't the fake reports or the fake flags. It was the fact that she thought she could control everything. Every move I made. She was there, lurking in the background, trying to undermine everything I built. But it was time to fight back. I wasn't going to let her win. I went to that HOA meeting and exposed everything. The fake property markers, the doctored photos, the lies, everything. And when I showed them the security footage of Karen unscrewing the latch on my goat pen, that was it. People started to see her for who she really was. Not the protector of the neighborhood, but the villain of the story. The vote to annex my land. It failed. But Karen didn't just walk away. No, she kept pushing. She slashed my barn door. She sent more drones. And then, one morning, I found my goats gone. My animals were stolen and tied to a fence post in Karen's neighborhood. She left a note that read, "Community animals require community oversight." That was the last straw. I called the sheriff, documented everything, and finally took a stand. But Karen wasn't just a nuisance anymore. She was a danger. It all came to a head when she showed up again this time, more desperate than ever. She had papers in her hand, a manila folder filled with lies. She waved it around like it was her last shot at winning. But this time, I wasn't intimidated. I wasn't scared. I stood tall and faced her. And that's when it happened. Officer Dan showed up with the county, ready to arrest Karen for everything she'd done. All her fake reports, her trespassing, her lies. They finally caught up with her. So here we are. The ranch is safe, my animals are safe, and I'm no longer the target of a neighborhood tyrant. But Karen? Well, she's facing legal action now. Her reign of terror is over. For now. And I'll tell you, Fizz, it's been a long journey. But I've learned that you don't have to fight dirty to win. Sometimes, just standing your ground and telling the truth is all it takes. So what do you think? Was I wrong to stand up for myself? Is it fair that Karen was allowed to manipulate everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinions on what happened and how things turned out.